Okay, I am recording this so it plays forever into time. So gonna go around based on how I see you guys on the Brady Bunch screen, and then have you each introduce yourselves, your company, and then I'll come back around. So I am gonna start with what I believe is my friend Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth, and my husband Rich is here, and we own GTS Theater.
Yay, I'm so happy you're here. Awesome. Josh.
Hey everybody, Josh Gertzog, Grand Strand Answers. I have a marketing company, and that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Kathy.
I'm Kathy Strass with ImageWorks. I tell stories and bring them to life through photography and art.
Thank you, Kathy. T. Mars is back in the house. Good to see you.
Hi, Mars McCallum with Team Logic IT. We are a managed IT service provider.
Thank you. Sherry.
I'm Sherry Glinsky, and I write for South Carolina Woman Magazine. And Tom, send the invoice to Terry.
No deal.
Perfect. Elena.
Elena Sbrana. I own Yerk Photo and Yerk Photo Sports. We do advertising, commercial photography, and sports photography.
Thank you. Dan.
Dan Mucci. I'm an executive business coach, and I chair a private advisory board of CEOs here on the Grand Strand.
What's that advisory group called, Dan?
Vistage Worldwide.
Good to know. Vistage Worldwide. Christy. You can't unmute yourself? I'll see if I can unmute you. Wait. I cannot unmute you. Try again. Your mic is not working. Okay. All right. Christy, if you have questions, actually introduce yourself in the chat and you can put questions there as well. And then I will relay any question you have. Allison.
Hey, Allison Hamilton, here with my dad, Hayden Hamilton. We're financial advisors. We work on a team.
Hi, Hayden.
You can't see me, I'm over in the corner.
Okay, well, nobody should put baby in the corner, but that's okay.
And Allison makes people rich.
Allison does make people rich. And Christine.
Hi, I'm Chris Heatherman from Painting with a Twist. A little bit of paint, a little bit of wine, and a whole lot of fun.
Awesome. Welcome back. Pete Gaska, my buddy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Gaska. I'm a lecturer and the director of the Community and Business Engagement Institute over at Coastal Carolina University. Yeah, glad to be here.
And a really smart dude. How about that? And someone who forgot to schedule happy hour with me yesterday, but that's okay. I won't hold it against you.
You know, yeah, don't worry, it's gonna happen. It needs to happen.
Okay. Tracy.
Hi, yeah, Tracy Brown in digital marketing.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So that kind of gives you an idea, Tom, of who is on the call today. Does anybody want to get started with any legal questions that you might have? If so, raise your hand so I can see you or jump.
Let me do this real quick, Gina.
Yeah.
So now that I know who's on the phone call, I'm gonna go ahead and hang up and just leave. But but I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm done.
Oh,
so,
that's right. I heard about
everybody...
your sense of humor. You need an improv class, right?
I do. That's right. See, I wonder if I can find someone to help me out with that. But with that being said, not everybody wants to do things publicly, so I'm happy to give out like my personal cell phone number or anything like that if you want me to. That way,
awesome.
I can answer questions privately. And so that number is 843-655-7333. And then I guess my email would be tom@goldfinchwinslow.com. That way people don't want to do stuff publicly. They can do it privately.
That's great. Good point, Tom. Good point. Does anybody want to do anything publicly? Okay, Kathy.
So the photography is kicking back in again, and I've had inquiries, but there was a discussion at the very beginning of the shutdown people, clients canceling, and I'm not so much weddings in my realm, but the families and stuff like that. And some of the conversations with the photographers and even with the national organization, Professional Photographers Association, is what is the best clause to put in your contracts for people that, you know, they book you and you require in my case, but most photographers require a retainer. But what is the best way to approach it if they get scared and they decide that they're going to cancel and they demand their money back?
Yeah, so I think you're asking a great question for not just photographers, but for pretty much anybody that's on this phone call. I mean, we've had calls from restaurants, wedding planners, venues. Everybody's got the same question of, you know, what do we do for the past and what are we going to go and do in the future? So let's break your question down in multiple facets, unfortunately. So what you're asking is a pure contract question of, one, that attorney's going to ask you is, do you have a written contract? So if you don't have a written contract, then it's all verbal. If you perform the service, you should get paid. If you don't perform the service, you should not get paid. It's relatively straightforward in terms of that. Otherwise, we would call it something along the lines of unjust enrichment or some of that nature, that you're making money something you didn't do. On the other hand, if you have a written contract, the written contract can change those terms and turn it into a situation where it's based upon a mutually agreeable document. That's what's called a contract. So the contract sometimes has different clauses in it, such as something called force majeure or inability to perform. And that means basically if there's an act of God, there's some reason out of both parties' control, there's a term in there of what's going to occur. And so knowing that was where you start. You need to go back and analyze what you have already in place. And then you need to analyze it for what has already happened in the past and the future. So the reason I say that is this. If you have an event scheduled next month and they want to cancel it because of the virus, or maybe flights aren't going like normal, no offense, but that's not their problem. That's not your problem. That's not their problem. You have a signed contract in place, and there's nothing stopping you from performing your side of the deal, right? So if there's a wedding next month for you to take pictures at, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do that. Now, last month, when everybody was on lockdown, you weren't allowed to gather, and maybe you weren't allowed to be out, there literally was a reason you could not perform that contract. So going forward, I don't know of a reason that's going to allow contracts to be canceled unless you just want to cancel them out of your good customer service and good heart. Going forward also, you need to analyze the written contract, no more verbal contracts, analyze the written contract and have it drawn up properly to cover terms that might be out of your control, because it might not be another virus, but a hurricane is the same kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do when that bad weather occurs? It's the same concept. So this is something that should have been addressed, honestly, Kathy, in your initial contract. If you had it for weather conditions, it should be more broad to cover everything, car accidents, whatever it might be. Now let's go back.
Thanks.
Going back to the past of stuff that is already canceled because of the situation. It's a question of customer service and business versus legality. And so the last thing you want to do as an attorney, it's not my job to win a case, it's my job to benefit my client. So if I can go and win you $1,000 from your contract, but you get smeared all over Facebook and the internet because you have horrible customer service and you weren't sympathetic to that bride who lost her wedding, that's something that you as a business needs to understand and consider. And I think, yes, you need to understand the business implications. But with that being said, people are still being held to their contracts based upon the terms of the contract. And so I've been on both sides of that. So what I need to do is just look at your contract that you had signed, see what verbiage was in there. But yes, you can still hold people to past contracts. But going forward, everybody needs to analyze their contracts and make sure they're prepared for future events.
Okay, so follow up on all of this one. You and I will talk afterwards about this. But I show up I have all of the safety in place. I've got the mask on, et cetera, the socially distance when it comes to the family, et cetera, et cetera. And 2 weeks later, I'm done with the job, turn over everything, and then all of a sudden I get a letter going, "Hi, Grandma got COVID, got sick. She's in the hospital and you are responsible."
So, yeah, so now you're talking about personal liability.
Mm-hmm.
So the standard for personal liability, let's go back even deeper, Kathy. All right. So to hold someone or a business personally liable, you need 4 things. One is you need to prove that there was a standard owed to them, right? You couldn't take your car and wreck it into their car, right?
Right.
They breached that standard. They because of what they did it improperly, and they breached the standard, and it caused causation, a damage. Okay, so if someone has COVID, so we got to go backwards. One, did you meet your standard? You even have a duty to them. Well, if you're in a contractual relationship, you have a duty to them. Did you breach the standard? If you're taking all the proper precautions and you're doing what you should do, then you're not breaching the standard. And if they are acceptable, even if you're not doing anything, and they're okay with that, if you write in your contract, I will show up with no PPE protection whatsoever, and I have COVID, and I'm going to make you sick, and they agree to that, then you're not breaching the standard. They've agreed to it. You see what I'm saying? So what I would tell you is that I'm on a board for Terra Hall, Home for Boys, and I created a waiver for them that basically they would give to their guests that says, this is what we do. If you're not comfortable with this, do not come on this campus, and if you are, sign here. And they're basically accepting the standards that we're putting out there as being appropriate. Therefore, you're not breaching the standard. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Now, on the other hand, I don't even know if you didn't do that, it would matter. You got to prove that causation. So it's going to be really hard in a liability fight to prove where someone got COVID from. So I would do the waiver that helps you on your breach of the standard. But even if it got past that to liability and to litigation, it's going to be really hard to prove I got this disease from one person 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So I always tell my clients, and Kat, you probably, everybody's heard it at all my meetings I go to, but I can't stop a lawsuit, but I can try to prevent liability. So you never know who's going to sue who, but you can try to prevent being liable for it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can I follow that up? It's Josh. Hey, Tom.
Yes, sir. Hey, sir. How are you?
Hey. Question. I want to extend what Kathy was talking about because I think it's very interesting. What if you extend that to a retail establishment? Again, is it the same principle in that if they prepare in the way that they've been instructed, then that provides a level of protection and liability? Do they need to have waivers filled out by every consumer attending their retail establishment? What has to happen when you have the general public coming in there to prevent them from, someone from getting sick and, accusing a local place of not preparing properly to prevent that?
Yeah, and that's Josh. I mean, it's a great question because right now no one knows an answer, and so what you do is you try to create the best scenario possible. So in that scenario, I would not have restaurant customers sign waivers because the business aspect of it, it's too off-putting. I mean, you don't want everyone having to come in and sign a waiver to eat at your restaurant. It's not something that I would imagine most restaurants would want to do. See, that's where you weigh the law and the business. You're taking a little additional risk, right? You could have a waiver, and that way you can present the waiver at trial and say they signed a waiver knowing they might get sick. But if that was what the restaurant industry wanted to do, why would they not do it for food poisoning or do it for other situations? Because nobody wants to sign the waiver to be able to eat a meal. So just on a business aspect, I would not do it. But let's flip the coin a little bit. In regard to a restaurant itself, what can they do? Well, if you look at the executive orders, there's been 33 executive orders put out by the governor so far, and all these are available. And what the governor says specifically in regard to restaurant establishments is to go to the restaurant industry and go to DHEC, and they've got guidelines on those 2 platforms. And I've been talking to a couple of restaurants about that. So if you go and you look at the actual executive order, there are quasi guidelines. Now keep in mind, no one knows what's going on or how to prevent, secure, whatnot, truly about it. So these guidelines are always changing. And so what matters is the guideline that was in place the day of the event. So if you go by the restaurant guidelines, you go by the DHEC guidelines, if someone still gets sick, or Kathy, if there's a photographer guideline of what you should be doing, and as me as an attorney, I can say this is the guideline that we were provided and we did it. They can't show you breached that guideline. Keep in mind, when someone has surgery at a hospital, they might die, even if everything goes right. So just the pure fact that someone gets sick or someone dies doesn't mean that somebody's liable for that injury or that death. And so that's the thing. There's certain risks associated that we accept. And as long as you're following the guidelines that are put out there, then generally, liability-wise, you should be okay. There might still be a lawsuit. That's why you have insurance. But liability-wise, you should be okay.
Cool.
So follow up on that, Tom, a couple different follow-ups.
Sure.
We say guidelines. Guidelines are not necessarily legal guidelines. They're the guidelines that someone like a DHEC sets, correct?
Like industry standards. You know, what is the industry standard for photography, comedy shows? What's the industry standard?
Well, and that's the big unknown too. There's been a lot of work put into DHEC and restaurant standards, but there seems to be standards missing for things like theaters and attractions, as we are the last ones to reopen right now. You even look at gyms. Some are requiring you to wear masks, some are not. I mean, it's all very confusing on what the actual guidelines are. So if you don't have
even
guidelines,
beyond that, you know, even beyond that, I mean, every state has different guidelines for different restaurants.
Right.
The federal government, the CDC, would have different guidelines than DHEC. It's your job to make it as best for your business and your customers. It's the job of your attorney to help you figure out what direction that is. Because the odds are, and I'm not saying y'all have, I'm sure that most of y'all have not read all 33 executive orders put out by the governor or the DHEC reports on what should be done for your industry if it's applicable. So that's the kind of thing that you need to go and you need to do a little research or have someone help you create a written policy. The written policy is important because with the written policy, you can actually introduce that at court, right? My mind has always got to be towards the worst case scenario. What if someone does get sick? Even worst case, what if someone dies and it's my fault that they got, let's just say it is my fault they got COVID. Well, did my business do everything it should have done to prevent that from happening? Well, how am I going to prove that if it's not written, if there's not a written policy, if there's not a waiver? Let's get up in court and say, well, yeah, I was wearing a mask, or, oh, yeah, I was wearing gloves. How do I prove that to a judge or a jury? So what I would encourage you to do, especially for like shows or something of that nature, would be go look up what other places are doing. Go look up what is suggested. Go talk to somebody that might have some knowledge, an attorney or I don't know, a manager of these kind of places, a management company, and get a written policy of what you're doing. So that way, A, your customers know what it is. Mm-hmm. They can see it. B, your employees know what it is. They can follow it. And C, that way you're protected and hopefully liability is reduced.
So maybe going back to the retail question, maybe it's a policy that you either post on your website or you email to your customers, or you I've considered creating a sign that we put at our theater that people see it clear as day.
Absolutely. Or you can hand it out with tickets. Right, here's our policy. Just want to let you know, you staple it to the ticket along with it on the website. You're not going to go, you can't go overboard with your policy from my perspective. It's just a balance between business and legal, right? You don't want it to be so scary that they don't come, but at the same time, you want to make sure they can't say, well, I didn't know that.
Right.
So
right.
Whatever the best balance is.
And while you say that it's going to be hard to prove if someone got COVID at your location or from you, people can sue you, which will require you to get an attorney, and is going to cost you anyway. So you mentioned the liability insurance. So is that something that people should be looking at then? Is their insurance policies?
Yeah, I mean, this is, in my world, I love the law because it's always changing. The law yesterday is not going to be the same as tomorrow because events occur. So this situation that we have here is causing a lot of insurance questions, right? What's the responsibility for insurance companies to businesses? You know, there's insurance out there called business interruption insurance. Was this a business interruption? Sure was.
Yeah.
Do they cover it? They're trying to say they don't cover this. Well, how does that play in? So what I would encourage people to do, if you have a business policy, whatever facet it is, call your business broker, call your agent, call whoever it is you're working with, and talk to them about your policy. They might, a lot of what they should do is provide you with legal counsel when you need it. And so they might have a template waiver for you. They might have a template policy for you that would be a good resource for you, or they might be able to put you in touch with an attorney to assist you. But if you're paying for that policy, then they need to serve you, right? If you're paying for an attorney, your attorney needs to serve you. So whoever it is, they need to serve you, at least give you answers. And I always say, again, you might not like what answer I give you, but I'm going to give you a truthful answer. So they might tell you it's not covered, but at least then you know. And you can ask them, well, what is covered? Because if something does happen, then hopefully you'll be covered for that litigation if it should ensue. But it never hurts to call, you're paying for it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to ask a question for Tom?
Ask anything you want, COVID or not. I'm here for you.
Well, if nobody else does, I have another one. It's Josh again. And this one is a little more forward thinking, but along the same lines. It looks like, you know, hopefully at some point, we will have some level of a vaccine for this virus. And I'm curious what your thoughts are looking ahead, whether it's 6 months, a year, or longer. Are businesses going to have some kind of responsibility regarding the vaccine vis-a-vis probably mostly their employees, not so much their customers? But do you think that's something that's going to have to be addressed by companies once a vaccine is developed?
So I love, oh, Josh, I just get so excited. I mean, this stuff is awesome. The vaccine opens up so many doors, right? So vaccine and just in general brings a lot of constitutional questions. And then you couple that with employment questions, right? If someone does not, say they're not inoculated, they haven't had the vaccine work, or would you have the right not to hire somebody that isn't vaccinated? And then you open up the question of liability with customers, right? And so then you open up the question of business and business liability. So just that one question encompasses 4 or 5 different aspects of the law that all need to be coupled together in an answer, which is
that's
why we created that's why we created the firm the way we did. We have 6 attorneys that cover different areas of law, so we can all work together as a team to answer questions completely and not just in one aspect. So let's try to tackle this question the best we can. The vaccine, there's a case in 1903 out of, I think, New Hampshire that says that the government has the right to enforce a vaccine, which means that literally they can hold you down and give you a vaccine if they wanted to. That's out of 1903. And obviously a lot of things have changed over the last 120 years, 115 years. Would that still hold today? I don't know. But there is precedent that says vaccines can be forced upon people. With that being said, it opens up the constitutional question of privacy and constitutional questions all over the place. That a lot of questions I'm going to get from businesses are regarding the Fifth Amendment as the governmental taking. Do they have the right to even shut me down and almost cause my business to go out of business? That's another constitutional question that's out there. And then you get to the question of employment. If someone's not inoculated, am I forced to hire them? Can I even ask them that question, right? There's certain questions we're allowed to ask or we're not allowed to ask when we're hiring and sometimes firing, technically. But, do you have that right? Well, generally, you would have the right to hire and fire who you wanted to, as long as it was not discriminatory. So if they did not get the vaccine because of religious reasons, would that be discriminatory? Or they just chose not to get the vaccine, would that not be discriminatory? So what's going to happen with employees? Then what's going to happen with customers, right? Do you have the right to refuse service to the customers? We've had cases such as the cake maker who refused to serve people because of his religion. Well, is he entitled to do that? Are they allowed to do something like that? Well, technically, yes. Technically, they're allowed to do this. It's private business. But you can't do it for discrimination reasons. Again, are you discriminating because of religious reasons? Are you discriminating because of, I don't know, some other reason that's not discriminatory, just that you wanted to protect your employees because they didn't have the vaccine? And then what kind of liability does that cause for your business if you don't have a policy, or if you do have a policy? Or you can get sued for not serving customers because they don't have a vaccine, or you can get sued for serving customers because you're not discriminating. So many unknowns and so much great political and legal debates are going to occur because of it, which is part of the reason why businesses need that guidance. They need to know what they're going to be allowed to do and not be allowed to do going forward. And it's going to create a storm of lawsuits on both sides because no one knows the answer. And no one's going to know the answer for a long time as lawsuits drag on, probably all the way up to the Supreme Court on some of these. So it's going to be really, really unique and really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it extends beyond that too, because the one thing we didn't mention in any of this is children in schools. And, is this going to become something that children and students are going to be required to have in order to attend school, which I believe is the case in many situations, that they do have to have.
There's already guidelines in place right now in school districts that they have to be vaccinated to be able to attend school.
And I would guess it would make sense that this would get added, but I think that's going to be controversial in and of itself.
Oh yeah, no, vaccines are already controversial. But that's the beauty. And that's the beauty of our country is that if you don't like, and it's going to sound weird, you don't like South Carolina's rules, go to North Carolina. You don't like this business's rules, go to this business. If you don't like going to public school because of their rules, homeschool. There's so many options that are available that anyone with any perspective is right. Nobody's wrong. If you're passionate about the vaccine, good for you. You care about your health, good for you. You can make that choice. If you're passionate about not having the vaccine, good for you. You care about your liberty and your freedom or whatever you want to have, and you don't have to. That's the beauty of the United States of America, or that ability to have those freedoms and that ability to make that choice. Other people forcing their beliefs and their perspective on you. We all can have our own perspective. We just have to respect it.
And I think one other thing that has to go, and I'll shut up and let other people ask you questions, but is that then you take all of those things that you said and temper them with business reasons. And people are going to have to make decisions, based on running their business that they might have to make some tough decisions based on their own beliefs, yet the ability to be able to compete and to be able to have the liability insurance that they need. So there's a lot more to be said. And that's why I brought this up, because I knew it wasn't easy. But I wanted, kind of like for this entire group to be thinking about that, because it's going to affect all of us.
Yeah, and you brought up a question or a statement that I hadn't thought about. Our business liability policies require some kind of COVID, sanitation, inoculation, whatever it might be, for a lowered premium. Or are you going to have a higher premium because you're at a higher risk for liability because you have this? I don't know, but it is a question.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking when I thought about this of Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby makes the decision, as is their right, not to require their employees to vaccinate. And then they'll deal with the economic ramifications. But in the meantime, their insurance might go flying through the roof. And so they have to make some different decisions based on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. That's why you always got to weigh the business perspective, the legal perspective, the economical perspective. There's never one right answer. It's the economy versus health. There's not one right answer. Everybody's going to have a different opinion, and it doesn't mean anybody's wrong. Everybody's right. Everybody just has different cares and different passions.
This may be a really stupid question, but maybe other people are thinking it, so I'll put myself out there on a stupid question. Looking at the woman in Dallas who decided to open her beauty shop and then be arrested and put in jail, can we really be told legally we cannot open our businesses?
And so that kind of feeds back. So with that being said, in my world, I promise you there are no stupid questions. I've got more stupid questions than anybody else because I'm the one that is not afraid to ask them. That's a question that I have debated and many people have debated. And so there's two different schools of thought on that. One, of course, is our constitutional rights, specifically the Fifth Amendment. You can't have improper, illegal takings without just compensation. So what that actually means is that, yes, you can literally be shut down by the government. But if you are shut down by the government, they take a piece of property, they shut you down. The argument is that they owe you just compensation for doing that. On the other hand, is the argument that they have the right to determine public health and safety and wellness of people, and as such, they have the right to make decisions regarding, I guess, shutting down businesses if it benefits the public in general. Now, I don't know if these are two separate thoughts. I think these might actually be one thought that goes something like this: that yes, if the government has good reason, valid reason for shutting you down, they have the right to do that. However, if they do shut you down under the Fifth Amendment, they must compensate you for that lockdown, that shutdown due to government regulation. And so I actually don't know if they're two separate thoughts or just one complete thought that hasn't been put together yet. Because I do think they can shut.
That's a really interesting predicament.
So, yeah, and when you think about it, right? If the state governments and federal governments have to compensate every business for 2 months of profit for shutting them down.
That was my follow-up. If that's the situation, then we should be being compensated while we're shut down.
Yeah.
No, that's 100%. 100%. If you look at the Fifth Amendment, it says the government should compensate justly. So, it just hasn't been borne out. But yeah, there's an argument for that.
It sounds like a good civil lawsuit.
I was just going to say, are you ready to take a class action?
Yeah, well, we've been talking to some folks about that.
Well, the follow up to that, and this is an emotional reaction, is it almost feels discriminatory based on who gets to open when.
Exactly.
And who's making those decisions of what is safe and what's not safe when you look at what's going on specifically in South Carolina, specifically in Myrtle Beach, specifically what happened over the weekend downtown, and you have crowds and crowds of people, but a tiny little theater with 70 seats, or GTS's theater, which is a little bigger than ours, we're still sitting here waiting to be allowed to be opened. Same with attractions. If attractions were open this weekend, you probably would have had less people on the street and maybe less shootings. I don't know, but it feels really discriminatory.
No, and so I'm going to change your terminology. So discrimination is obviously a very legal word. Now it gets used quite often, but the proper context for discrimination is based upon something that cannot be modified by an individual, right? So age, sex, stuff of that nature. So I don't know if discrimination is the right word, but it is definitely preferential, maybe, or arbitrary. Because what's the rationale of deciding who's essential and who's not essential? Why would you be in business if you're not essential to somebody? I love going to the theater. I love comedy, no matter how bad I am at it. But why is that not essential to me and to you? It's definitely essential to you if you own the theater. So who gets to make the decision of what's essential and not essential?
Right.
So I don't know if it's discriminatory, but I do believe it's arbitrary and capricious, which is something that should never be done by the government. We should all be treated equally and fairly as they're our representatives. We should all be treated the same. That's the premise of discrimination laws. So I agree. I don't understand the shutdown or the reopening process, right? If you think about it, the beaches were reopened one weekend where they said local leaders can make the decision. Well, then you have half the beaches are open, half aren't open. So people are not going to go to the beach, just going to go to the ones that are open. So now they're even more busy and more populated. So as you stated, the more attractions that are open, the more stuff that's available, the more dispersed the population is going to be, and the more social distancing, I guess, naturally would occur. So I agree. I understand.
Okay. Sounds like a class action suit.
Yeah, there's a lot of constitutional questions that need to be explored. And like I said, we've talked to a number of people about them. We've had some businesses shut down that probably wouldn't have had to shut down. Clearly, there's an economic impact. So that is something that's being explored. So I'm happy to talk to whoever wants to talk about it. Happy to talk to you about it.
Somebody did send me a link this morning, and I will share it. You can petition the state. This is specifically for South Carolina, and you might be familiar with it, Tom. You can petition the state to allow you as if you're considered a non-essential business, you can petition the state to allow you to become essential, and you have to just find a good reason for it. Like someone suggested to me, well, don't people need comedy for their health? Our classes are people refer to them as cheap therapy. I mean, there might be an angle that helps us reopen based on that. I don't know. But if anybody wants
there's a form. Yeah, there is a form. Where is that form? I think it might be with the LLR. If you go to the LLR website, Labor Licensing and Regulation, SCLLR. I helped a couple of businesses fill that form out. There's been over 100 businesses that have had special exemptions issued to them using that form in Horry County alone. So that form goes back about a month or two from now. But yes, people have been using that form.
Yeah. Other questions? Anybody?
Anything? It's free right now.
Maybe we touched on this already, and this is one of the things that we're talking about with regulations set by the CDC or whoever, because no one knows who to follow anymore, to require patrons to wear masks or those kinds of things.
Or hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer, obviously.
Good question.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's so, in my world, to you as business owners, it's so frustrating because you got no idea what to do and how to do it. And so you look upon people for guidance, attorneys or maybe CDC for guidance, and you're kind of getting different ideas from different places. So where do you look? At this point right now, I'd almost tell you to look at your local jurisdiction. If you're in the city of Myrtle Beach, you need to follow the city of Myrtle Beach. If you're in the county, if you're in South Carolina, that's the kind of the beauty, again, of our country is that everything's different. And it's frustrating because it doesn't cause that synchronicity that we so like, but every state's doing things differently and every industry is doing it differently. If you're trying to follow a guideline, just make sure you have validity behind it and that you're not just kind of doing your own thing. I would definitely follow some kind of guideline for my industry, whether it's through the state of South Carolina guidelines or the restaurant guidelines, and just do your best. I don't know if it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to say what's right and wrong because we don't even know how it really works at this point completely, because that's why they haven't been able to find a vaccine. What's the legality behind them being able to tell you to do that? I don't know. There's no law, right? People are getting arrested for, like the lady in Texas, got arrested for having a barbershop open. People are getting arrested for not wearing face masks. Well, if you think about it, is there due process involved in that situation where the legislature who actually makes the law says, hey, you have to do this, and they make it a law? No, normally it's under a governor with an emergency order. Well, Wisconsin just had the Supreme Court turn down their governor saying that, look, it's no longer an emergency. Emergency can't go on for 2 months. You've had enough time for the legislature to make laws and pass laws. So there's a lot of questions about legality, especially under due process as well for individuals. But as a private business, like Costco just did the mask thing, as a private business, they have the right to do that. And they're going to have to weigh losing customers or gaining customers based upon that business decision. Each one of us has got to do the same thing.
And this may have been already kind of covered, but it kind of got me thinking now, what can businesses do to protect themselves from someone who at least is overtly like, yeah, I got the COVID, I'm coming in anyway?
Well,
yeah, so if someone does, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, we ventured out last week because, of course, in North Myrtle, they kind of lifted everything. And we went out to a restaurant. And all they had was on the door what the guidelines were, if they ask if you know, and no one physically asked, it was just on a sign, do you have a temperature above 100, you know, these kinds of things. And if so, we would appreciate if you did not patronize us, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's
it's,
all,
again, it's not the,
I think that's all
I'm
we
sorry, yeah,
is to cover our
yeah,
butts.
it's kind of up to, it's kind of up to the private business. I mean, you have a situation where, kind of like you, I went to Bonfire in Conway, and I'm telling you, the restaurant probably had maybe 100 people there, 150 people there, inside and outside. And they tried to spread some tables out. I only saw one person wear a mask. The employees did not have gloves or masks on, but there was something on the door that kind of said the same thing you said. On the other hand, like Costco, they're forcing everybody to wear masks. On the other hand, to go into certain places, you have to have your temperature taken. I think
of that.
Yeah, well, you open up when you start taking people's temperatures, and my concern, and you're looking for a disease, now are you talking about health violations, HIPAA laws, you know, protection of medical records? There's a lot.
Is the equipment calibrated correctly? You know, I mean, they're so different, many different things that comes with that temperature situation.
Well, and, you know, and then dig even deeper. You know, when you signed up, say, for a gym membership or Costco, you didn't sign up with the terms of having to wear a mask or have your temperature taken just to enter a place you paid for a membership of. So now are they changing the terms of your contract and violating the contract terms? So a lot of questions.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just kind of want to make a comment on the temperature question, because it brings up a big giant can of worm, and maybe Tom, you know, can give us some guidance on that. But a lot of the people that are putting into their policy now that when they open, they'll use the contactless thermometers and take temperature. What are they going to do with it? Are they just going to read the screen and say, you know what, you're above 104, so go back home? And then they're going to hit delete and, you know, reset and take the next person? Or are they going to write, you know, if it's a membership situation like Tom just mentioned, like a place where you pay membership, you have a contract, are they going to write that down? Because if they write that down, then that becomes a health record. So they have to put the access control in place. They have to protect those records, and they have to show they're HIPAA compliant. I mean, that's like, you're going to put a giant burden on a business that wasn't ready for it. If you're a medical practice, you have that in place. But if you're like, you know, LA Fitness, well, you're not prepared for that. So you have to put in a whole other layer of computer protection, record protection, access control that you were not ready to have. So this is a giant burden for businesses at this point.
Yeah, no way. I mean, if I was a private business, and I guess I am a private business, no way am I taking anybody's temperature and gathering health information that I don't know how to handle. I mean, there's a lot of liability behind that as well.
I want to jump back to contract type of stuff for service type businesses, consulting type businesses. You kind of covered this, but I just kind of want to bring it up one more time. It's in our contract, and I definitely want you to look at our contract for training. It's in our contract that we have a non-refundable deposit for business because we are doing work before we show up to actually facilitate and execute the training. We're putting work into it. So we do have a non-refundable deposit. It is part of the contract. I think we've had one client. We haven't refunded any of the non-refundable deposits at this time. We've given them options to reschedule, but can you talk along those lines for anybody that might be in a take a deposit scenario?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So in our beautiful world of South Carolina, we actually have two forms of law that very rarely do people understand. You have legal law that you see like in statutes and the legislature passing. That's kind of where your contract comes in. And then on the other hand, you have what we call equity, which is actually a court of equity. And it's almost just replace the word equity with fairness. What's fair? What's proper? what should be done in this scenario. It has nothing to do with the law. So even though you have a contract for the law, we still got to look at equity, okay? So in terms of equity, what I would make if I were trying to get back a deposit from you would be arguments such as unjust enrichment, such as, you know, you getting money for not performing a service, even though the contract says non-refundable, it's not my fault it got canceled, right? That force majeure concept.
Mm-hmm.
So what would I do more practically for a business such as yourself? One, have the contract, because the law you can handle, right? So have the contract prepared in a way that protects you properly. And that would help handle the law. On the equity standpoint, if you don't want to refund a retainer, you need to be able to prove that you actually earned some of that money, okay? And that it wasn't your fault or their fault, but you still earned some of that money. And so maybe you did some work ahead of time, and that's what the deposit's for. And then for the actual show, or whatever it is, for the actual show is the remainder that's owed. Going deeper, even going deeper with that, you might want to offer to, I guess, maybe an employee or a guest performer or even a customer the option, like you said, of rebooking a different date, and you keep the deposit. So you've already done the work. You offer them a half refund because you can prove you did use some of the money to facilitate preparation, but you want to give them back some money just out of good faith and also out of equity. That's what's fair, and that's what the court might find due to the unjust enrichment concept. Or you just say, look, contract said non-refundable, I'm not giving it back to you, and then just be prepared to prove, A, that the contract said that, and B, that you earned that money through equity terms.
Okay.
Okay, no, and I'm going to follow up on that because, I generally have a non-refundable deposit, just like Gina, because I'm prepping stuff beforehand, and doing the scouting and getting ready for, doing pre-consultations with the clients, etc., on the shoots, and all of the photographers are, flipping out because their clients are going, hi, we want our money back. And meanwhile, we've been doing all of this work, and then, a lot of the photographers are saying, all right, well, we'll give you the option for rescheduling. And a lot of the times, like in the case of family, they're here on vacation. They're not going to be rescheduling. Or, in the weddings, there are wedding, I know there's wedding insurance too, but I don't do a lot of that. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, the fact that they're not going to be rescheduling is not your problem. And that's callous, and that's why attorneys get the rotation. Maybe they have, but they have a signed contract with you. They knew it was not refundable. And if you've done work, again, same concept comes in. If you've done work under equity, you're entitled to some of that money. So very legal. Here we go. In the world of equity, you have two counter thoughts. One is unjust enrichment, right? I'm paying you for something that you unjustly have been enriched from because you didn't perform your service. On the other hand, you have what's called quantum merit, which says you don't have the right for me to do work and you not to pay me for it. Okay? And so when I combine those two thoughts, because one would be for the plaintiff, one would be for the defendant, when I combine those two thoughts, the basic concept is they need to be compensated properly. So if you've done some work such as scouting and taking pictures or whatever it is you did, then you have a right to some of the money in equity, but you have a right to all the money in equity. Okay, and so maybe it's not something along the lines of, I'm not going to give you a dime back. You're going to say, look, this is what I did for you. I want you to understand how much time I put into it. But because I love customer service, because I love you so much, I'll give you two options. One, I'll be happy just to reschedule it because I've done the prep work. I'll be happy just to reschedule it anytime you want to. Otherwise, I've earned 50% of this money. I've earned 25% of this money. I've earned 75% of this money based upon your rationale, because that's what you're going to have to do at court anyway. So you might as well do it now to prove and show your good customer service, and you're trying to give them an option. And so I want to just go, it's non-refundable, screw you, goodbye. That's probably not good service, and it's probably not accurate in terms of the law. But I would go ahead and look at my contract to make sure I was prepared legally, and I would look at the time I put into it to make sure I was prepared equity-wise.
All right, we've got a little bit of a different situation where, again, I would say, 85, 90% of our tickets are sold in advance online. And as people are doing their own purchases, we have a form that they have to check off, that they understand that there are no refunds, only exchanges, and we give up to 2 years, and it's all right there. They have to check it off before they can go any farther in the purchase. So
Yeah.
What we've done in this
I'm
situation,
good with that.
we've extended it out to 4 years. I mean, I know that the Country Music Fest rescheduled for September, October, whenever it is, and you either accept that date or not and do whatever you want to do with the tickets,
But you don't get it.
but you do
Yeah,
not
no,
get,
I mean, that's more than fair. That's more than fair. Yeah, I'm okay with that. That's more than fair.
and as we were speaking about putting in any type of a stipulation about the COVID, stating that they understand, I guess it would go right in that same area, that, we've done everything we can do, and they are coming, quote unquote, hopefully uninfected
At their own risk.
at their own risk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you're doing what you can. Yeah, in that situation with a ticket such as that, yeah, just extend it, or maybe offer, and I don't even know, but like, free transfers where they can transfer the ticket to somebody else that's down here.
Exactly.
And then we're also offering, if they can't make it back, because we do have people coming in from all over the country, if they can't make it back, we give them gift certificates so that they can sell them or gift them to someone else.
Yeah, I know. I think that's even going above and beyond the gift certificate. So I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that concept. I think that's fair.
Okay.
Well, who knew we would take up just about the whole hour for this? So that's good. We have what is your hourly rate, Tom? Just so we know.
Oh, you'll find out soon enough. My hourly rate is $3.50 an hour. I've got other attorneys and paralegals, of course, that are less than me, but that's my hourly rate.
Well, we appreciate your time to answer these questions, and this is recorded. So those who couldn't make it can hear it. I put Tom's phone number in the chat. One more time, it's 843-655-7333.
Yes, and that's my cell phone. The office number, if you want an appointment, is 843-357-9301.
9301. Say that one more time, 843.
Yes, ma'am. 357-9301.
Okay. And I'll share that when I share the recording. So thank you for your time and answering our questions today. We really appreciate it.
That's my pleasure. Anytime anyone needs something, just feel free to reach out to me, guys. It was a pleasure.
Give Tom a holler. And since we are at the 1 hour mark, we're going to wrap up this call because I think we covered a lot in this hour. Next Monday is Memorial Day, so I decided to take the day off next Monday, so we will not have a call next Monday. Yay, it seems like I have been working quite a lot without getting paid lately, so I'm going to take the day off next Monday. We will resume these weekly calls because people keep showing up, so I'll keep doing it as long as you want it the following Monday. So I'll put that information out probably at the end of this week. I am a little busy. As Carla Fisher knows, the Pivot Power Party starts tomorrow. If you haven't checked that out, go to pivotpowerparty.com. That is my 3 days of virtual training in leadership, sales, and creative thinking, problem solving, and Carla made me do it. So I'm a little overwhelmed in getting that rolled out, and I know Dan Mucci is very happy about it too, as my coach. So until next time, thanks everybody for being on this call.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you,
Tom.
Gina. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Gina, thanks.
Talk to you later.
Thank
Good to
y'all.
see everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.